to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Wednesday night, slightly earlier than normal. It is Geordies here, Geordies there, and as always joined by a good panel of Newcastle United supporters and good friends to chat for the next hour about Newcastle United. And as always, there is always something to talk about, something new to talk about each day. And a former, dare I call him, coach of this football club, Mark Lawrenson, has claimed today Newcastle United are taking the fun out of football. This comes in an article in the Chronicle taken from elsewhere, where he essentially wades in to the argument about Newcastle and gamesmanship. And I'll give you a couple of direct quotes from Mark Lawrenson, who was telling off the ball. That's where this has actually come from. He says, all of a sudden, if they go down and stay down, the ref has no other option. He might go over and say, are you all right to the player who's injured? And they'll respond, no, I've done this or that. This has crept into football, and Newcastle do it all the time now. In regards to next season, not wanting to wish away this season, in regards to next season, I think the Premier League are going to have to look a bit at this. Maybe even, I tell you what, if you can walk off, you go, and the game will go on, I think that would quickly stop it. It's genuinely here all the time now. So, once again, and a pundit, albeit somebody who's not really in the news as much as a pundit, George, having a pop at Newcastle about gamesmanship. More clickbait or just trying to make yourself relevant, George?
Well, a little bit of both. Clickbait and because make yourself relevant because his sole contribution to being a coach, member of the coaching staff for the defensive coaching staff here at St James's Park, was to make it one of the worst defences in the bloody league. And we just got worse and worse when he was in charge. So, it's him wanting somewhere to go for me. He was never a good coach, never going to be a good coach. But also he couldn't hack the pressure. Another one who came to Newcastle that liked the notoriety, be involved with a big club, but couldn't handle the pressure that goes with that, and that's what you're seeing now. So this is a way of Mark Lawrenson's getting his own back, if you like. If I'm going to say something, it's not going to be positive. It's going to be negative, and that's quite sad, really. Very unprofessional, and clickbait's another way to describe it. But I'd really hinge it on unprofessional and somebody who just couldn't hack it and is now looking for something to say to get his name in the papers again. And where it comes from, I don't know what he's been watching, or any of them have been watching for that matter, but some of the football our team has played this year has been scintillating. That's a word I don't use very often, but scintillating. And, to attach taking the fun out of football to that, you've really got to be digging deep. You've really got to be stretching things. And I'm not even aware that our players, when they go down, are down any longer than anybody else's. In fact, there's sometimes I think that they sometimes get up too quick for me. Sometimes they'd be better off being a little bit longer. So no, it's Mark Lawrenson being Mark Lawrenson, which is quite sad, really. Great player in his day, but a very ordinary defensive coach who nearly destroyed our defence and couldn't hack it in the northeast because he couldn't take the pressure.
Yeah, lots of people with an opinion about Lawrenson. I agree with you, Buller Boy. Mr. Anderson says, wasn't he part of the Liverpool team in the 80s? He used to pass the ball back to the keeper to waste time. As back then, the keeper could pick it up. Lol, it was awful. Yeah, yes. Very true, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve?
Yeah, I think it's something new that's just been invented. This, it goes back a lot of years. You get the 1-0 to the Arsenal going back, and that once they did that, they just shut up shop and made the game boring. And while I don't think we've yet hit the heights of the entertainers, as George has just said there, there's some great football, fast, aggressive, on the front foot. The press game is really impressive, and it's something that, you know, not a lot of teams can do, and it's what's excited people over seeing Man City over the last few years. The pressing all the time, and we are getting pretty close to being able to do that, and that's exciting football. And if you're bound to go down and tired at sometimes in that, but I don't think we've gone down any more than anybody else, and I think he's just trying to make himself relevant because he's a has-been, and he just doesn't get the headlines anymore, and he's looking for any opportunity to jump on the bandwagon. So ignore him and move on is the thing. And I'm sure it'll be yesterday's chip paper, tomorrow's chip paper. Sorry.
Yeah, good way of describing it.
Even though you don't get them that form anymore.
Yeah, I'll get your point though, 100%. Kev, just an old has been, just somebody trying to make yourself relevant.
Yes, it's lazy. We've always said about this, about people making just little snide remarks here, there about Newcastle United. And I've just wrote it down. Doesn't every team do this when we're 2-1 up away from home? It's just earmarked us because it's us at the end of the day. And I'm not really worried about it. To be honest, I don't really care. You can say what he wants and let us get on what we've got to do. Let the Arsenals of the world, the Man United of the world do what they do. And yeah, move on. And that's pretty much all I've got to say about it, because I don't want to give them airtime, to be fair.
That's fair enough. Tom Dixon, though, gives you something you might give airtime to, Kevin, and that was that the Newcastle United pre-season tour has been confirmed. 23rd of July, Philadelphia. 26th of July, which will be a date earmarked by you, I'm sure, Atlanta. 26th of July. And the 28th of July, New Jersey. And also the birthday boy, James Moore, who is in the chat. Happy birthday, James. He is hoping to see lots of people in Atlanta when the team rocks up there. So good news for the American expats, Kevin, including yourself.
It is, yeah. There's a massive, obviously, big old country. So there's a lot of Newcastle fans in every state, I think. So it's going to be quite interesting experience just to visit the stadium, visit our city, and what we can bring and show it from a tailgating point of view and a bit of a party atmosphere. There's 2 games that day, so it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said off before we came on camera, that I've already earmarked tickets. I've already got them sort of in the pipeline with registrations and things. The group I'm with have got 20 tickets plus and a suite, what they're looking to try and get. So again, but it all comes down to what I think is like a Darren Neal influence with the relationships that he had. He hasn't burnt any bridges. Plus, it's an international hub, but it's easy to get into for like other fans from the UK and other fans across the country, across the world to get here. So it's a big thing for the city. The city can handle it. We've done Super Bowls, we've done college football playoffs, and hopefully they'll open it up to 71,000 people and see a proper atmosphere inside of it, because I've been clamoring for one. There's always drums and trumpets and bloody all sorts of whatever else going on to create an atmosphere. So let's see what happens. But yeah, I've more than started, more put in like Sharpie marker, big capital letters to get there, even if I don't get a ticket, but more likely I will. So hopefully some of you lot can get over here and experience Atlanta, Georgia.
Fantastic, great stuff. Good to see the club going out there. Al-Walid, how are you, my friend?
I'm all right.
Good to see you. Mark Lawrenson, just another one criticising Newcastle for gamesmanship. It must surprise you, the media in this country. Somebody living in Saudi, it must surprise you to see the media constantly.
Well, Steve, for me personally, I just watch NUFC Matters for trusted news. So
Very good.
I didn't know about anything about that.
Well, there you go then. There you go. So you got your trusted news from us today. Just out of interest, Al-Walid, the Brentford game, what did you make of the result?
A Brentford game?
Yes, the 2-1 win.
Yes, the team now have like some sculpture, some personality. Even we have hard times. We are like a glue team, and it doesn't matter what. And I believe I can say a Manchester game give the team the confidence, because we didn't just score goals. We score with magic. And you're speaking just now about the entertainers. I think maybe this is something Eddie Howe tried to bring on for coming days. It was really a brilliant game, and I really have more faith of the team to go to Champions League next season.
Great stuff. Okay, Mitch, your thoughts on Mark Lawrenson's little chat?
I'll enlighten Al Waleed. He's a bitter and twisted, curmudgeonly old has-been who has no place in the modern game and should shut his yap. And if his idea of managing an injured player is to tell him to get up under his own steam and walk it off, that shows a fabulous Bruce-like level of lack of knowledge and understanding in the modern game. Is everybody just going to run off? What, you're going to run off a broken ankle, are you? Get off the pitch under your own steam? What about concussion, Mr. Lawrenson? If a player comes up and tells you can't remember his name, what, you're going to tell him he's called Pelly and send him back on the pitch? What are you going to do, eh? So that's how you're going to manage all these injuries. You've got no bloody idea, and you're now so irrelevant to the game in your desperation and your bitterness that you did naff all for us, and yet you came in with a bloody cavalcade that this is the man to sort our defence out. And you actually managed, of all things, to make a bad defence worse, which was almost impossible at the time. Tomorrow's chip paper, move on.
Mitch, say what you mean, man. Don't hold
I
back,
will. Aye.
Stu, has he stolen your thunder there?
Well, just what he said. I was just about to say I want to echo Steve Wilkinson's words, but Mitch took it that 1 yard further, or probably 10 yards by the time we'd finished. But yeah, he's irrelevant. Lawrenson, not Mitch. He is bitter, and you can tell he used to slag us off on Match of the Day, and saying that the defence needed sorting out. He was brought in to sort out and made it worse. So there's his argument. So anything he says really should be just dismissed. And to me, it's part of the Chronicle to get interviews like that and print stuff like that. And I understand why they do it, but really they could do a better job with the local press. As I said in the trailer for this, we're in the best position we've been in a generation. People like Mark Lawrenson shouldn't even be discussed or listened to. You know, we've got proper people doing the proper jobs, doing the right thing, and we're all on the crest of a wave. But this wave is just going to, pardon the pun, become a tsunami rather than a tsunami, and we're all just going to ride it and enjoy it. So people like Mark Lawrenson, who else are they going to? Is it going to be in Jimmy Hill's will? I don't like Newcastle. You know, I mean, what else are they going to try to dig out rather than just say, do you know what it is? It's exceptional what they've done. And they've seen off one of the much voted teams that they were praising, them and Brighton. We've seen Brentford off after a very shaky first half. And you can tell I can speak now because on Sunday I was suffering. So I need to thank Mitch and George for helping us through the professionals on Sunday.
You did very well, kiddo. You did very well.
You did, really.
I know, from Tenerife to Rome, delayed flight, arrived in Rome at, well, I think I got the hotel about 4 o'clock this morning their time, and then I had to be up at 9, and then I had to get the connecting flight to Dubai, had to wait in Dubai, and then back here, I got in Bahrain at 3 o'clock this morning. So whatever time it is, I managed to get on here on time, but I don't know what time zone they're in, but I don't know which country I'm in because I know I've got work tomorrow. But Mark Lawrenson, ignore him.
Well said and well done, that man. Ray asks a question, Stu. Comes straight to you after you've supped your red wine. Do the panel, like me, think we should go? We could go unbeaten for the rest of the season. I really can't see who's going to beat us.
Well, you see, you mentioned the red wine, but I did the same on Saturday when it was my birthday, and I was getting wrong off my wife and mother for staying out too long. But all I was doing was boosting the local economy. So I think it's right that when people travel to do such things. So the question is, can we stay unbeaten? Well, yes, we can. Will we? Do you know what? I had this discussion with a Leeds fan on Saturday, and I said the one game I'm concerned about is Chelsea away, the last game of the season. And that's because at some stage, their plethora of players will click, and they'll have nothing to play for by the time we get into town. And it could be like one in the eye from the big six to the new kids on the block. And that's what I'm concerned about. The weight of expectation would be on us if we haven't already qualified for the Champions League by then. So that's the game I'm concerned about. I believe if we replicate the same atmosphere that we did for Manchester United against Tottenham and Arsenal, we'll win both those games. So I would say the games that worry us most are Chelsea away and probably Brighton at home. Those are the two that concern me most.
Okay. Mitch, can we go unbeaten for the rest of the season?
I think after Saturday's game, can we? Yes, we've got it in. To do what we did at the weekend, we got it in. We've got everything in. We've proved it in what should have been a tough run of 3 away games, and yet a tough run of 3 games with these 3 away games after. But the 3 games we had: Man U home, West Ham away, Brentford away, 3 games in 6 days. We come away with 9 points and a healthy goals difference. So can we? Why not? We've shown we can. The unbeaten run we had at the start of the season shows we can bring these runs out over a long period of time. Will we? I think these days there's just far too much quality in the Premier League that you'll slip up against somebody somewhere along the way. And that's just trying to be a bit of a realist. If the question is, can we? Yes, we can. Do I think we will? No, I think we'll slip up somewhere. I just think there's particularly as we get towards the business end, people fighting for survival, people scrambling for points here and points there. There always seems to be odd results towards the end of that season, and we could get tangled up in that a little bit. But we've definitely got the attributes to do it. And I think certainly, I don't think anybody should be criticised for trying to think positive about that either.
Okay, Al-Walid, now you, when Newcastle were going to get relegated last season, were the man who stood up at the Irish Centre in October last year and said, "We will not be relegated." So, Al-Walid, are we going to win every game between now and the end of the season, or will we go unbeaten?
We'll see. I make a video last year. I just put it online on Twitter. I said that we are going to Champions League. So I'm just saving this video I will retweet it if we, hopefully, inshallah, hopefully we'll be in the Champions League. We can go unbeaten, but I'm afraid the pressure of other teams like Tottenham, Liverpool, maybe Manchester United, the pressure, we are not used to this kind of a pressure. I noticed this with the final. When the team have the pressure of getting something, not getting away, we're getting away with, like from relegated, I think we have experience in that. But of getting something like Champions League seat, I'm afraid this will get some nervous with the team, especially with teams that maybe get to be relegated, and they will play defense. They will try to steal a point from Newcastle, not just win over Newcastle. They steal a point. Those are the games. But I trust the game. I trust the team and Eddie Howe. I think we have getting more experience day by day. So only thing also beside the referees, because Champions League have a lot of money, and maybe some I can see now some decision of the referees maybe will not get into our direction, but we have big chance to really be in Champions League, and I think this is really good opportunity for us.
Yep, and you put your cap on as well. You've obviously noticed the comments. You're not a proper Geordie unless you put your cap on. Kevin, can we go unbeaten?
We can, but again, like others have said, there's a lot of permutations to go on an unbeaten run across to the end of the season. Some may have a lot to play for, some may not. It all depends on results elsewhere. Again, I'll go back to my old statement. We can control us and us only, and do what we can continue to do, like we've done at the start of the year. Have a little blip, turn them draws into wins. Yes, pick up points. Again, it's a Bruce phrase, but recruitment of points. That's all what we can do at the end of the day. But I think we can. It's a mentality. It's a positive mentality that we have to have going in every game. And that's what Eddie Howe's going to instill in the players. Like we've just seen this past week, it wasn't great, the football at the end of the day, but we got 3 wins. So there's a mentality in play. Again, it's just execution of what the manager wants, and can they do that consistently over the next period of games? And again, if we get through the Tottenham game with again unbeaten or 5 or 6 wins and on the bounce, there's only Arsenal and Brighton at home. Brighton is the one, I agree with Stu, that's the one that worries us a little bit, because who knows what to turn up on the day. They play some decent football. But again, I think we possibly can. It just, again, it's a mental state from players, and how can you get the best out of them game by game, regardless of scenario, regardless of the situation, what's in front of us. Next game, and we'll see where we end up. But again, it's too many permutations to say yes we can, but I believe we can.
Steve, it's a big ask, but it's we're into the business end of the season. Every game's a cup final now.
Yeah, I think of the other teams in the league, I think possibly Man City is the only one that you could almost say definitely won't lose again. But because I think Arsenal will, they're playing at Man City and they've got to come up here. But I think we saw on Saturday a team that was arguably beaten quite convincingly in the first half. If the VAR went for us, and obviously a bad penalty, if we'd been 2 or 3 down in half time, which was a possibility, I'm not sure we would have come back from that. But they got some fight in spirit in that second half, and the change they made, and a style change as well, which was something we didn't think there was a plan B, and there clearly is a plan B, bringing Isak and Wilson to play together, which made a big difference. And I think that sort of thing gives us the resilience to go forward and probably remain unbeaten. And when you look back at the 3 games we've lost in the league this season, we've been unlucky in all of them. It was Liverpool away that we should have won. VAR and 98th minute. The home game was a strange game with Pope getting sent off and those 2 early goals. But the second half, even with 10 men, were better than them in some ways. And Man City, Man City's Man City, and we only lost 2-0, and we're starting to get back in the game before the second goal went in. So there's definitely fight there, and the possibility we can do it. I don't care if we lose one, but because I think that others will do as well, and as long as we can get into the Champions League. And listening to you doing with Ben Jacobs yesterday, I think it might be closer than he came up with, is the difference between Man U and Newcastle. But I'm comfortable that he got us there in 4th spot, which is the main aim.
Yeah, I mean, I dropped that on him, to be perfectly honest, and it was good. It made for good viewing. I mean, already though, his prediction is not going to happen with the result that happened at the weekend. But always interesting, well worth writing down where you think Newcastle will be. Work out the points, work out the running. Always interesting. Okay, George, your thoughts? Newcastle, can they go unbeaten before the end of the season?
Yes, I think they can, and the things that have cemented that for me are some of the things that the people have pointed out as negatives. The loss at Wembley was about all sorts of things, but out of that negative, we've got lots of positives. Look at the team that went out and played against the same Manchester team. It's at James's Park, and Manchester never hardly got a kick, and that'll be in that dressing room. All those senior guys in that dressing room, like Trippier and Byrne and others in there, Shaw, they'll be saying to the younger ones, look, we're not going to let ourselves down like we did that again. So out of that negative, I see a whole lot of positive coming. And you saw the other bit of the positive out of that come on Saturday when we weren't in the races in the first half. Slight change in tactics, slight change in personnel, and suddenly for 20 minutes, Brentford couldn't get the ball. And that's the kind of, if that's the kind of thing we can do, then there isn't a team really, apart from Tottenham and Arsenal, that'll get near her. And bear in mind, we're still the only ones that have taken a point at Highbury out of Arsenal and
at the Emirates,
at the Emirates, and didn't let them score. Yes, I'm sure me age away there.
We've just done those with the days. That's why.
That's right. That's what it is. Yes. And also something else that gives us confidence that this is possible. I was worried about Brighton as well until I saw the match against Brentford. If Brentford can put 3 against them in the way that they did, and they hold Brighton to that, then there's no reason why we shouldn't. Yes, Brentford might come up and might score, I have a feeling that we'll do an entertainers on them, and if they score 3, we score 4. I've got that feeling about that game now. I haven't seen them against Brentford, so I'm confident that we can, and almost as confident as that we will.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I think we can. We'll know a lot more after these next 2 games, of course. The Aston Villa game and then the Spurs game. It's they're the 2 big tests for me. Arsenal, of course, moving forward as well. But you never know. They've got the bit between their teeth, and I think the cup finals proved to be a motivation. I think you're right. The senior players in the dressing room have gone. We don't want this happening again. And again, the run in from relegation, it's a run in, isn't it? They've been in this position before. They've gone into a run in where they needed to win every game. This time they might not need to win every game to get where they want to get to.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. We'll be back with Ask George. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's, handmade in Cumbria. These sauces are really hot stuff. You can order them by emailing info@mrvickys.co.uk or by telephoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to Neil and the guys at Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the subscribe button tonight. It is free. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. If you want to join the channel, hit join. There's 3 different tiers. Pick the one that suits you and help support the channel financially. If you want to pay a one-off membership fee of £25 and get these goodies, a scarf, a pen, a cup, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to NUFC Matters and look for membership pack. Failing that, get your smartphone and put it over the QR code and it will take you straight there. We're also a podcast and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and other podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make a virtual donation today at the Matchday Bucket, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and you can make a deposit today. Don't forget to enter the Shearer raffle. There's 150 tickets, £1 per ticket, and you can win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. If you have a look on our website, we've also got a vast range of mugs, t-shirts, cups, and whatever else takes your fancy. The Isaac t-shirt is proven popular this month, $16.99 plus delivery from nufcmatters.com. Don't forget as well, we do a range of events over the course of the year. We have Peter Beardsley, an up-close and personal evening at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Limited tickets remain, 25th of April. Get them now from Surf Cafe, tynemouth.co.uk or from ticketweb.uk. There's also an evening with Peter Beardsley on May the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and you can get tickets from newcastlelegends.com, and tickets are £50. Don't forget our end of season do takes place 27th of May, 7 o'clock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that one are a tenner, and nufcmatters.com is where you can get your tickets for that. In June, Thursday, the 1st of June to be precise, Rob Lee will be at Louis Liquor Store in the Big Market in Newcastle, and tickets for that are available direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford takes place the next evening on Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. This is a charity event and tables are of £10, £700, and you can book them by contacting Natalie at heelandtour.org.uk or visiting their website. In July, Gavin Peacock is in Newcastle on July the 10th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that are available from nufcmatters.com. And he also takes an evening with at the Surf Cafe in Tynemouth on the 11th of July. So get your tickets direct from the venue for that one as well. And if you're a boxing fan, the Night of Champions, Ricky Hatton, Frank Bruno, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe takes place at the Fed. And that will be taking place on the 16th of June. More dates to be added. Tickets from all those events, www.goldstarpromotions.co.uk. Okay, it is time for Ask George. Okay, Ask George, your chance to ask George whatever you like. Keep it clean, of course. Alan sent us a message on Twitter. He said, Steve, can you ask George, why is this swing bridge red and white? Surely it should be black and white.
Well, it's historical and it's all about anti-corrosive paints, I'm afraid. And when they built the swing bridge, they obviously chose red lead rather than any other sort of lead paint to protect it against corrosion. And once you've done it red, there's no other colour you can go. You could try and change it with white lead paint or grey lead paint, but the two things would probably mix and you'd end up with something that was bloody pink, which would be a disaster. So once that started with red, and that historically was how it was painted, they're stuck with it, and that's why it's still red.
Okay, I knew you'd know the answer to that anyway. Can you please ask George his opinion? Has Eddie Howe got more blue chip players than Sir Bobby Robson had?
No, not at the moment. I don't think it's about on a par, I would say. But what I will say is that Eddie Howe's acquired something that Bobby Robson had as well. He'd get things out of players that other managers couldn't. I mean, one of the examples I give is one of my favourite players of all time, and I don't care who disagrees, is Hatem Ben Arfa. And the skills that young man had, he was unlucky to be here when we had a head case like Pardew was the manager. If it had him when Bobby Robson was manager or Eddie Howe was manager, God, what a player he would have become for Newcastle United. So I would say not at the moment, but it's on a par. It's on a par. The other thing is that Eddie's got, when I talk about having the dressing room with you, I don't think there's any doubt about that he has. Unfortunately, so Bobby ended up with head cases like Dyer in the dressing room. And despite all he did to try and help that lad, he ended up refusing to play for him, which was an absolute disaster. He should have been sent off then. So no, I'd back to the question. I'd say they're about on a par in terms of premium players at the moment.
Okay, and the next question is from Tom Dixon. He says, can you ask George what's the worst tackle that you've witnessed in football?
Oh, one of two. Johnny Giles at Joker Park against Sunderland, against a Sunderland midfielder called, big lad, Scotch lad called McPhee. And Johnny Giles snapped Willie McPhee's leg. You could see it you could hear it from the touchline, crack, and there was no doubt about what was, and it was the end of Willie McPhee's career. He recovered from the broken leg, but his career never recovered, and that was as bad as I've seen. And the other one was a one from our good friend Graham Souness on Sky Sports when he played for Middlesbrough. And he made a challenge on Lee, or was it Liverpool? Lee Clark, and he smashed Lee Clark's shin pad into a million pieces. In what I mean, how Clarkey survived that tackle, I do not know. But that was one of the worst tackles I've seen as well. The two were, one was as bad as the other, but they're pretty awful. And right in the middle of the shin. I mean, over the top's not the word. It wasn't over the top. It was over the Tyne Bridge. Never mind over the top.
Okay. Chicken Oriental says, is there anything that George doesn't know?
Well, you can tell us if you like. Give us a ring and you can tell us what I don't know.
I'm not sure if this is going down the court route. Nicholas from the Felon, he says, did George know my granddad's brother, Bill McKinney?
I did know Bill McKinney. No, that's Newcastle United right back. Bill McKinney, and he was captain of the club for a season when we were in a bit of a turmoil. Bill McKinney came to Newcastle United from a very famous old Wallsend team called St. Luke's Church in Wallsend. their institute had a fantastic team, played in the equivalent of the Northern League and won it regularly. And the home ground was a ground I've spoken about on here before, called North Road off West Street, where Lindisfarne Club is. That's who originally owned the North Road ground before it was taken over by Newcastle United. And Bill McKinney played there for Wallsend St. Luke's. So not only did I know Bill McKinney, I know his background and met him many, many times.
Okay, and the last question is from Ray Burra. He says, question for George, where does his son get his fashion sense from? For example, budgie smugglers.
Runs in the family.
Don't stand up, George.
Yeah, don't stand up.
Runs in the family.
Great stuff. Some great questions and some great answers. Thanks, everybody. Nicholas from the Fallon also says, give or take a few letters, Mark Lawrenson is an anagram of Bulls. Tom, getting back to Mark Lawrenson also says, I remember him and Hansen passing the ball back to the keeper scores of times per game. I'm sure they fetched the pass-back rules in for those bores, which is a good point, mate, a really good point. But yeah, and Mozza asking if is it hard? Is it almost as hard being at the top end of the table as it is at the bottom end? What do you all think? We'll come to that. Go on, the mystery. You'll go with it because you.
No, I'm loving it at the top. I think at the minute it just feels like we're not looking over our shoulder. We're not worrying about what's going on. In a season when there's about 8 teams or 9 teams, it's still at this stage of the season could go down. And we're not in it. So, yeah, it's good. It's far better at the top. You've got now to lose and everything to gain. Now, ask us that in 10 years' time, if we've had a run of Champions League successes and we're at the business end of everything, might feel a bit different then. But right now, I'm loving it. And I'm loving chatting to fans of other clubs over here, most of whom are in the mix somewhere, the Evertonians and the Leeds lads, and they're all sweating and they're all looking at results and they've all got their calculators out and they're working the permutations out, you know. We're doing none of that. We're just looking at the top end of the table and life's good. So, pressure? What pressure?
Stu, pressure? What pressure?
No pressure. The club, and when I say the club, I mean the owners, the coaches, the players, and I touched on this on Sunday. They're embracing this push for the Champions League, and there's no signs of fear. The mindset, the mentality, to me, Eddie Howe has to take a great deal of credit for that. Are they scared? Not a chance. It's togetherness of achieving something, and it gives you that extra 1 or 2%, which makes a huge difference in the top end of sports. I mean, yes, some fans who haven't experienced it before, they might be scared. Some with the much referenced by Mitch Stockholm syndrome, they could be scared. But the ones who are, and I'm sorry for using the language, shitting it more than anyone else is the national press. And I say this because don't kid yourself, I put a lot of thought this because I've had a lot of time sitting on aeroplanes. The main reason for their anti-PREF rhetoric is simply that to stay relevant, they will have to move from their cosy little hubs in Manchester or London to the mighty team of the Northeast. That's going to become the mightiest team of the land. And if they want to report on the top teams in England, they have to move to the Northeast. It might be just the fear of being so close to Sunderland that's putting them off, I don't know. But to me, that's what I think is behind some of the things that the press are writing. And I know Mitch goes into this in a bit more detail on the Amigos, but the coverage or the lack of coverage this Man United bid's had is ridiculous. You know, as I mentioned earlier, the future's bright, the future's black and white, and if you're sitting there without even giving them names, because you don't give them airtime, but a hack based in the Northwest, and you want to cover one of the top teams, you've got Man City, but Newcastle's going to be the next top team. And we will pass them, make no doubt about it. This sounds like Al Walid on the stage at the Irish Centre. But we will pass them because our wealth and our fan base is bigger than theirs. So it's only a matter of time. So I'm not even concerned. I fully expect us to get the Champions League this season. And I know I said earlier at the start of the season that everyone was talking about a 5-year project. These people will get the right people in the right place to do it as quickly as possible. We're not going to sit back and think, oh, hang on, this is a year ahead of schedule or 2 years ahead of schedule. They'll grab it with both hands. And for us as fans, it can only be a good thing, because that will then create more money, generate more wealth, which will go back into the team. Because in fear of repeating myself, these people have bought us to make money. And the only way they can make us money is get us on that top table as quickly as possible and make sure we sustain our place there. So get the Champions League this year. We'll break our transfer record. We'll break our transfer window this summer. And it'll all be done with extra sponsors. It'll all be done with the great care. There'll be nothing hidden, and we'll be doing it the right way. And just like Liverpool have just admitted today that they can't be signing Jude Bellingham, or they've pulled up the race. It's because they were banking on Champions League money. Other teams are banking on Champions League money. And I have to surprise a few of them. Only 4 can qualify for the Champions League in a normal year. So why 6 or 7 teams are budgeting to qualify for the Champions League is beyond belief. But also the bank's giving them money to do so. So they've had their turn at the top. They've messed it up. It's our turn now. Move over. We're coming through.
Al-Walid, nervous are you at this end of the table? That was the question. Is it easier being at the top than it is at the bottom?
It's just a difficult way of competition. That's why the teams, maybe now this is going to different for us. Of course, we have excitement and we would love to go to the top 4, but later on we will face something in contract like those old top 6 have, that if they not been in top 4, they will be reduced 25% of the salary. This level of competition is different, but I think we have to get the advantage of the excitement of the team, and I think Eddie Howe try to focus on every game separate than the other game, and I think he study his games separately. The competition. If you see the points and the teams who went the seat, the 3rd or 4th seat, we have really big chance. So we just keep doing what we're doing, and I believe we really can.
Keep doing what we're doing. Yeah, I would agree with you there, Al-Walid. Kev, your views on the pressure. Is it easier being at the top and battling for the European slots than being at the bottom?
Absolutely, but it brings a different pressure in terms of a level of consistency. But for me, it's better to look up and head in that direction than looking down, because I don't want to be in a relegation scrap every year. But it all comes from the top. Like Mitch and Sue said multiple times, they have a standard from the region of wanting to be in the best and pushing forward constantly. So yeah, I'm loving it. I mean, look, this is what we're in football for, right? This is what you play the game for, coach the game, support the game, to push for medals, for trophies. That's the whole nature of the game. Go and just to comment on some of the media stuff, even over here, it's just hypocrisy at the highest level, because apparently we're not in 3rd. We just they go from 1 to 2 to 4. So again, it's just hypocrisy at the highest level. But again, I'm loving where we are. I'd rather be pushing and looking up and where we could get to. It's only 2 places where we can get to eventually winning the thing, rather than fighting a relegation battle, because I would not like to be in the relegation scrap this year. Like Mitch said, it was whoever it was, in terms of like pretty much the bottom half, any one of them can go down. So fabulous. Just keep on moving.
Keep on moving. Yeah, it is a different type of pressure, Steve. And I remember Eddie Howe saying exactly that when he was in a press conference a while back. I think it was Nisha from the BBC asking, was the pressure different for him? And he said, it's a different type of pressure. Yeah, he says, but ultimately it's the same. It's dependent on getting results. And as he said all season, we focus on each game. We get the result. We move on to the next game. And he says that's what we did when we came in to try and keep the club up, and that's what we do now as we're pursue our next aims and ambitions. So Eddie's not feeling it, I don't think. Are you, Steve?
Not at all. I think the years when we were fighting relegation, and obviously we went down, is you're worried about the fact that you might stay there or go down further. Sunderland did it, Sheffield Wednesday, Notts Forest, Leeds, and you fear that things will just implode if you go down. And fortunately, in both cases, in the Ashley era, Chris Hughton and then Rafa, we came back straight away. So we didn't really suffer too much when we got relegated. But the thought of having to play at places like Coventry and West Brom and Blackburn and Bristol, we're not going to be thinking about that, and we're more wondering whether we'll be going to Milan or Munich or Barcelona again. That's a totally more pleasurable thing to think about, and accept that pressure rather than the thought of going the other way. And long may it continue, because even if we're, I'm still confident we'll get Champions League now, but even if we get Europa League, there's still some pretty good places to go to, and a success can be had. So, but I'm as I say, you just forget about the Championship now.
What about you, George?
Yes, it's pressure, but pressure of a different sort, and I can relate to it in two different ways. Even just going to the match is different. Yes, Bruce was doing what he did, we were still getting full crowds, but going and up to the stadium and talking to people at the food bank and all that sort of thing, it was all people biting their nails and worried about this and worried about that. Now and this season particularly, you got smiley faces, and they're not talking about losing. They're not talking about this. The only occasionally they'll say, "What do you think the score's going to be today?" Well, it's usually Steve Hasty that persuades them to do that. It's just about having an occasion, and going to the match should be an occasion, especially for the young ones. That's how it should be. It's not an occasion when you've got an idiot like Steve Bruce standing on the touchline with his Greg's gut on him, shouting, "Run it off, run it off." Nah, that's not an occasion. That's bloody painful. Bit like the 2 hours I put you through the day, Steve. on those were the days. But it's different, but it's a positive difference is what I'm trying to say in a very clumsy way. And that gets through the dressing room. I'm sure it does. It must do, and. It's why I'm more positive about what we'll do towards the end of the season, because all of that's slowly built up and the build it in. But such different pressure, but pressure just the same. But pressure with a smile on your face instead of your pants hanging out of your arse of your trousers.
Steve Middlemas says, "What do you think of Amanda Staveley's plan for the club? She said St James's Park is not fit for purpose at the moment. Needs a lot to do at the stadium. Also talk of a new training ground, George. We're going to have to brace ourselves on where there is going to be changes which potentially some of us aren't going to like, but which are going to be for the benefit of the club moving forward."
Well, I can't think of anybody surely who didn't realise that sooner or later, because of the way the current training ground is hemmed in, that if we really want a magnificent place like Leicester and others have got, it's got to move. It's got to go somewhere else. I suspect it'll probably not end up far from where John Hall thought it might be, out Ponteland way, or somewhere on the fringe of the city. If the Rubens have some land somewhere, it'll suddenly appear. But I think we've got to accept that it's probably going to move. But also the positive thing that they've done is that they haven't sat back and waited for that to happen. They've spent £6 million in the close season just to make sure that we've got facilities that are adequate now, and that's great. As to the stadium, she's just speaking as she usually does, total sense. If we're moving forward, we've got to move that stadium forward in some way. I mean, where I sit, for example, just between my 2 feet in the seat, there's a hole in the concrete that they have to keep filling up with cement. You can see where they're trying to do it. And what's the hole from? It's from a drip off the roof where the glass doesn't meet, and there's a constant drip. And the drip, of course, is coming down so fast it damages the concrete, and that's all over the stadium. That's all got to be put right. It would be crazy to let the stadium go any further with things like that. So no, it's just speaking sense for me. If it can happen where we are and in a relevant time, that's great. And even I, to be honest, would have to bite the bullet and say if they come back and say it's not possible, we have to do something different, then we'd have to accept it, have to do something different. But I'm convinced they'll find a way of doing it where we are now. But it'll have to be done, no doubt about it.
Times they are changing, said Bob Dylan, Steve Wilkinson, Tom Dixon, of course, confirming there that Newcastle's among 10 stadiums picked for UK and Ireland's bid to host Euro 2028. But changes are coming and they are needed, Steve. We've spoken about it on this show before. And although they've updated the training facilities, they're still light years behind what the likes of Manchester City have. So new change in a new training facility for Newcastle is imperative moving forward.
Yeah, well, I think as far as
sorry, Steve.
Go on, George.
No, it's all right. Go on.
Yep. I think as far as the training, it's not a problem because there's plenty of land around, and obviously Rubens are in that business. So I wouldn't think there's much problem in getting the training ground. I don't think they'll try and redevelop where they are. The space, as George has pointed out, is limited there. So I think they'll get somewhere new, and that can be developed relatively quickly. It might even be one season that it takes. So maybe by the start of the season after next, they might have a brand new facility. As for the ground, I think they will upgrade it as best they can, but there is going to become a time when they are limited to what they can do. I think this date of 2028 is quite significant because I think if they start to develop the Gallagher end, that might have an impact on that because I'm sure they're not going to want to have less than 52,000 in for that in 2028. It's 5 years. So if you start doing development on a ground that is still a ground, if you remember the last time, the capacity had to drop down, and it took a long time to do it. Basically, because almost every fortnight they were having to. I remember, when we were involved with the disabled group, Nudza talking to Dave Patterson, who was the safety officer, because he was involved in the development, and every fortnight they had to stop work on a Thursday. Because it was a building site for a fortnight or not 10 days maybe, and then they had to make it back into a stadium so they undo some of the work they'd done, get a safety certificate on the Friday before the match, and that was what took it a lot longer with a lower capacity. We're not going to want to do that. So somehow, as much as I would like to state, St James's, I think having a new stadium is a possibility in the 5 to 10 years.
Kevin, makes sense, doesn't it? It's progress.
Absolutely, and I worked there from 2004 to 2008 or 9, and it's needed upgrading then. I mean, they just done the odd lick of paint and the odd dodgy carpet, what you see on level 3 and all the above. I was part of the hospitality team, so I mean, yes, we do, but again, it's just as and when, like Steve said, when it does eventually happen to move to a different site. The training ground's a big one for me because that's where the players spend most of the day, most of the time. And again, if you have a world-class training facility, the players want to be around each other. It's just a great environment to be in. But yeah, the stadium thing is going to be interesting. It's just, again, I understand where Steve comes from. I know the health and safety officer, Dave Patterson, back in the day, I used to liaise with him quite a lot because I used to get shouted off him 99% of the time when within my job. But at the same time, it needed it then. We've seen problems then. Lifts didn't work, from the old stadium into the new additions, what they made. There was a lot of problems then. So again, it's just where, how, the costs, all that sort of stuff. But if the money is coming into us through Champions League football, Premiership wins, whatever that looks like, then that could be accelerated within less than 5 years, I guess. But it's just site and again cost. But yeah, I can see it happening in a change of stadium somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I can see that certainly. And I've got to be honest as well. I think that, what Mozza said, Al Walid, is quite simple. It's the fact that, these kind of decisions that the club will make now about the stadium, they won't be forced on us. And she says the difference here is that this will be open and it'll be discussed with supporters. We're no longer done to, and the fans will support that. So I think Mozza makes a good point there, Al Walid.
Yes, and speaking of 2028, I think it's still we have time, and I believe, يعني it's just now I'm admiring the St. James Park. So I don't know what else could happen after the little bit of adjustment and renovation of extending the stadium. So I think it's going to be really something to wait for.
Yeah, Mitch, just a matter of time.
Yeah, and I think whichever way they go in the long term, I think the point that Mozza makes is really important there. Under Ashley, it often wasn't what was done; it was the way it was done, and the way we felt that it was done to us and imposed on us, and there was no inclusivity, no consultation, no thought for how we would feel. With regards to the stadium, the man sat next to me told everybody, man, I was speaking to an architect and told them who the architects were months ago. I don't know why this is suddenly big news all over the place. Stu and I had this discussion quite openly on one of the shows not so long ago.
Yeah.
And was it July? Aye. And these are the things where these things come to pass, I guess, because obviously they've been discussing it more publicly, I guess, is why suddenly it's news now. But I've seen a whole host of very interesting, some curious ideas bouncing around again. We've chucked some things around in the past that were done just really started as ideas on the back of a bloody napkin in a pub in Dubai. We buggered and ended up with architectural plans, but that's how it goes sometimes. I think either way, in the short to mid-term, we've got to do something with St. James's Park because there's a lot still needs to. If we're talking about Champions League football in place that's regularly hosting top flight games, and so it's past Lycopene territory. I think the idea of looking at all things like food and beverage options and stuff like that's really important. Kind of then look at doing what things using regional products and stuff done in the region to help boost regional economy as well. I think all those things are very possible. That all makes more local connections and builds the solidity of the brand. We're now a brand that people will want to be associated. Under Mike Ashley, we were a brand that everybody kept held at a curried barge pole length. They wanted nothing to do. We were about as welcome as a fart in a spacesuit in some places. And now we're we're a brand who people want to say, yeah, want to be with them. They're going places. So, and I think that's the kind of thing they should also be looking at the same time. It's a wonderful opportunity to rethink so many things within St. James's Park.
Stu?
As Mitch said, we discussed this July, August. I'm sure I mentioned, or I'm not sure actually. I thought I mentioned the company's name again on Sunday. SKK, the stadium developers. I did mention it, thanks, short. That's who they've been speaking to. So what you'll find with our owners is that they're very proactive rather than reactive. They foresee situations positively rather than negatively and thinking, right, if we are going to escalate and improve the way that we expect us to, then we are going to need this, and this. Okay, how do we get this, and this? Let's speak to the best people who can provide us with this, and this. So it's not just like, oh, we're in the running now for the Champions League and it's April. They were thinking about this last summer. And this is why I'm surprised that it's like, so everyone's got all excited this week because they talk about it. But it is what it is. Maybe they should watch the show more often and get the exclusives that way. But regarding the training ground, I think there's an area near Wilsonton that George referenced there, Sir John Hall's old area, that has been earmarked to be where the training ground will be, which will suit a lot of players. It'll also suit a lot of incoming players, incoming agents, incoming everyone else because of their proximity to the airport. So I can imagine there'll be a private little road built from the private land at the airport straight into the training ground if they need to bring in players or agents, etc. But also a lot of the players live in Pontefract and Darrashall anyway. So it's less travel, which means less stress, because it's really stressful driving an extra 10 minutes these days. But also it reduces the risk of accidents and stuff like that. And it's a beautiful part of the world. You know, they can live there in their own little bubble, in their own little community that people can't get involved with. And if they want the peace and quiet of the countryside, it's on the doorstep. If they want the hustle and bustle of the city, it's on the doorstep. So to me, it's a white blank canvas for them to build there, and I'm sure it'll get improved. And I'm just thinking with the way things are going regarding the stadium. We've talked about this many times over a longer period than even last summer since the takeover happened, and I think the main intention would be to increase the stadium as much as they can. But if there is plans for a new stadium and we are successful this season, as in qualifying for Champions League, the clamour for tickets will be even higher, which will then, to me, make it more acceptable to suggest a shift. I mean, the ideal thing would be Leazes Park and turn the stadium round, but logistically, they may have to move to get the new shiny bright stadium that I believe our owners would like to deliver as their statement. This is us. We are PIF, and we will build you the best stadium, and we have the best stadium. So the more successful you're on the pitch, the more easier the decisions off the pitch will make. And I know we're running over time, so I'll
thanks.
stop now.
Yeah, and I will just say, Paul Charlton, I'm not getting involved in the slanging match, but be careful when you look at certain channels putting stuff out there. We'll put stuff out if we know it's 100% genuine. We don't lead people up the garden path on here. I'm not saying that Eddie does that on Tyneside Live. What I'm saying, what Eddie is doing is he's speculating. It's a toss of a coin with Eddie. On one video, and this is what somebody else has just said, Craig Lee, he did one saying it definitely would move, and he said one saying they definitely won't, and that's called speculating. I guess it's open to interpretation of the people who watch it, but for me personally, until you hear it direct from the owner or owners, then you can't really say what is going to happen. All anybody on a podcast can do, whether it's Tyneside Live, NUFC Matters, Loaded Mag, whichever, all anybody really can do is give their opinion, unless they've got something concrete. And if you look back over the last couple of years on NUFC Matters, particularly with the shows with Mr. Penman and Mr. Mitchell on, Mr. Mitchell Jr., that is, and Mr. Hasty, the man who gets compared to dogs, you will find that 99.9% of the time, those three gentlemen have got it right. Just saying. Anyway, you are right, Stu. We have come to the end of the show. And it's been a pleasure, as always, to spend time with Stu, Mitch, Al-Walid, Kevin, Steve, and George, who, as always...
Well, it's just to remind people that the last twice that we developed the stadium, we had no money. Joe Harvey had to go 4 years without being able to buy a player because we did this new stadium. The same thing happened the next time. They were struggling because they didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Different now, and the people that want help, council, university, they need money. So,
can NUFC go unbeaten? The poll that I did, 87 votes, 67% said yes, 33% said no. Thanks for joining in. Back tomorrow, 6 o'clock tomorrow night with Super Mac and Gibbo. Look forward to seeing you guys then. Take care.
Everybody.
Yes.